Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Something new. Of the Minister of Transport.
Order.
But the same sort of incompetence, of course. The Minister of Transport, my question is, why does Civil Aviation Rule Part 67 require that the applicant for a commercial or airline transport pilot licence have no deficit of colour vision to an extent that is of, and I quote the words, aeromedical significance, end of quotes?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
On behalf of the Minister of Transport, Civil Aviation Rule Part 67 contains colour vision requirements that are designed to meet the standards set by the International Civil Aviation Organisation, known as ICAO, in line with Annex 1 of the Chicago Convention. Annex 1 requires contracting states to the Convention, of which New Zealand is one, to test applicants to ensure there is no colour vision deficiency that could interfere with the safe performance of a pilot's duties. In practical terms, pilots need to be able to discern different colours used in aviation, for example on navigation charts, in cockpit instruments, airport lighting and air navigation lights.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Is he aware that Australia's implementation of the Aviation Colour Perception Standard enables pilots with all types and degrees of severity of defective colour vision to operate VH-registered aircraft across the globe, and that these operatives are flying planes into New Zealand?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Transport, the reality is in relation to Australia that New Zealand and Australia do apply the same standards as required by ICAO and, well, just hear me out, and use the same primary screening method. However, in Australia's case, the Australian Administrative Appeals Tribunal has made some decisions on some individual cases that requires CASA, which is the safety regulator there, to issue medical certificates to applicants with some colour deficiency. The CASA endorses the individual's medical certificate as not conforming with the requirements of Annex 1 of the Convention, and commercial pilots are limited to co-pilot duties only, and I understand are not able to fly commercially into New Zealand.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Is he aware that these colour vision defective pilots in Australia continue to meet the most stringent of operational training, testing and ongoing review requirements imposed by the CASA and their airline employers, and that these operatives have been, for the last 25 years, flying into New Zealand?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Transport, I'm advised that that is not the case. CASA requires pilots to get approvals from the regulator of the country in which it's flying into. In the absence of any such approvals, the Minister is not aware of any Australian colour deficient commercial pilots flying in New Zealand.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Is he aware that over the 23 years that Australia has followed this implementation of the Aviation Colour Perception Standard, there have been no accidents or accidents reported in which the colour vision status of the pilot has been found to be implicated causally, or why is he insisting upon fictional standards unsupported by countries like Australia?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Transport, again, I'm sorry that does not appear to be the case in relation to the matters that he has raised. Well, no, you're wrong, Mr. Peters. The reality of the situation is that the Chicago Convention requires New Zealand to sign up to the same tests. Australia has the same tests. As I've explained to the member, they have an appeals tribunal which has allowed some pilots to fly, but with restricted practices. In terms of New Zealand's standards relative to the rest of the world, we are seen as having having standards that are more liberal than some countries, and also slightly more requiring than others, but are all under the Chicago Convention.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Well, that's the point. I have done my homework and you haven't.
Order.
Supplementary question, sir.
Supplementary question.
If there has not been one recorded aviation-related fatality anywhere in the world in which the colour vision of the pilot has been implicated causally, can he provide the evidence upon which the New Zealand Civil Aviation Authority continues to justify its implementation of the Aviation Colour Perception Standard, whereby New Zealand certified pilots with defective colour vision have imposed upon them restriction so severe that make a professional career in able to answer my own question, not like the bozo over there, right? able to write my own questions, not like the Dumbo over there.
Order. Order. That's not going to help the order of the House. It starts because of injections from my right-hand side. Would the member please complete his question?
Speaker. So here we go. Whereby New Zealand certified pilots with defective colour vision have imposed upon them restriction so severe that make a professional career in aviation a practical impossibility in their own country, and yet if they get a job in Australia, they could fly planes into New Zealand. How ridiculous is that?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Transport, first let me say I think the House must admire the generosity of the member in bringing this issue up, because he's not known for colour blindness himself. But the reality...
Point of order. With respect, Mr Speaker.
Is the member raising a point?
Yes, it is, and it is that the Minister, as the standing order requires, should try and answer the question. He's never been much of a wit. In fact, he's been a half of a wit most of the time. And get on with being a responsible minister.
Order. Would the Minister please just address the question to help the order of the House? Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Transport, I suppose you could call that 1-1, but I don't think so. The reality of the issue the member raises, it is a very important issue, because if you look at some of the examples, he asked whether it's ever affected any accidents anywhere in the world. There are actually 2 documented aviation incidents and 1 accident in the United States where colour vision was seen as a contributing factor. Well, the member can say that, but actually the job of the air safety regulator is to ensure that it meets the international rules, and that's what it's doing so in this case. If the member is saying he knows better than the aeronautical regulator, that he should be trusted to make some judgments that actually our tests don't need to be as strong as they are internationally, well, he's fine to have that view, but the reality is we trust our regulator every day to provide the sort of safety that New Zealanders depend upon. And it's a serious subject, and actually we are required to sign up to the international regulations.
Question number 7, Pasata Sam Lotawinga.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Honourable Minister of Housing. How will